Welcome to Being Revealed with Stephanie and Alex. I'm Stephanie Cunningham.
I'm Alex Holtzapfel.
We started this podcast to talk about the journey of personal and spiritual growth, ours and others. Thanks for joining us as we figure things out together. Hello.
Hey.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I haven't seen you forever.
I know. It's been a really long time. I was just at the park.
Wow. We just gave our dog a bath.
Yeah, because
that was fun.
That was so fun.
Actually, it wasn't that bad.
No, it wasn't. Teamwork made the dream work.
Peanut butter.
Peanut butter made the dream work.
Peanut butter made the dream work, yeah.
That's true. Yeah, he was gross. I went to the park and I got out and it was super muddy. And I was like, oh no, forgot to bring a towel.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, let's call a spade a spade. I'm probably not going to wipe him off before I put him in the car anyway. So.
I mean, he could lay on the towel, but the one time I did that, it just made him like slip around everywhere. You know, because I have the leather seats in my car, so it didn't work out too well. Your car would be different.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I was glad I didn't clean my car out yet from the last few weeks. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's gross and it smells like mud.
Wow.
So, when we win the lottery,
yeah,
we'll have a dog car, like a dog park car, and like a nice car.
It would just be that car. Because we'll probably never be able to get the smell out of it. So.
Exactly. So we're just going to keep
the
that
hair.
one. Right. We'll keep that one forever when we win the lottery, which I guess we have to play.
Yeah.
So
maybe someone will win and give us the money.
Right. Well, yes. We can only hope and pray, right? All right. Well, today I thought we would talk about being honest with yourself. Mm-hmm. And that came up because I was having a coaching session with someone the other day, and that was a big topic of conversation. They wanted to focus on trusting themselves more. And as the conversation went on, it was clear that it was less about trusting yourself and being honest with yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, the premise behind coaching is that people already know what it is that is right for them, that's true for them, what's going to make them feel good and in alignment. We already know. Yeah. Right? We just have to kind of peel back those layers and really be honest about it.
And that when you're coaching, that's what the main goal is, to help them come to the conclusion or see their inner self or what they need or...
Yeah. And, you know, it could take one session. It could take 6 sessions. Yeah. You know, I always like to incorporate Reiki into coaching sessions as well because, you know, Reiki really gives us this underlying support. Mm-hmm. So, you know, not always do we do Reiki and then do a session. Sometimes that happens. We may do 20 minutes and 40 minutes. But I'm always tapping in and I'm always infusing just the session with that energy. It feels like things go a little bit deeper.
Well, and I would think that the session or the coaching session, if you're not able to be honest with yourself, then you're not going to be able to peel back those layers. Right. So a person probably has to be ready, you know, and maybe as you're doing the sessions, maybe they become ready, but it's kind of like with counseling.
Absolutely.
If someone is not able to be honest with the counselor or with themselves, and they're never really going to get to the root of the problem.
Right.
So, and it's hard to be honest with yourself or maybe tell on yourself or.
Right. To have that awareness of, okay, this is what's actually going on. And
sometimes we want to hold on to, it's kind of like with drinking, you know, it's the denial. Like sometimes you don't want to give up that right, or maybe there's a character defect that you still enjoy, so you don't want to, if you're honest about it and say this is a problem, then it's almost like, well, now I know there's a problem and it's not good to keep doing it. So it's not going to feed you the same way.
Yeah.
But,
right. To your point, we have such a hard time being honest with ourselves for many different reasons. I think the main one is that we externalize so many things and we don't really know ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And not knowing yourself makes it hard to be honest.
Well, yeah.
Right? So we think, let's say we're in a relationship and we're like, this person's doing this to me and this person's doing that to me and I'm doing everything right. You know?
Mm-hmm.
It may really genuinely feel like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, and that's our narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And we really believe it because we can't see the expanded view.
Yeah.
And once we are able to pull back and say, oh, okay, so I see where I held some responsibility in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm being honest, I'm the one that caused this particular issue in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't all one-sided.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think in terms of that, like relationships or stepping on people's toes, I guess one way to get to that point is to always think like it's usually a two-way street.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely is it just one
mm-hmm.
person. And sometimes it is. But
mm-hmm.
if there's conflict and this and that, then you go into thinking did I do something
mm-hmm.
that maybe helped instigate this? And, that kind of can help you go a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
So.
Or what am I allowing to happen in the relationship?
Mm-hmm. And it's
mm-hmm.
not just like kind of a sidebar, being honest with yourself or looking inward. It's not always like because something negative is going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like it got me thinking sometimes it's people pleasing, like with myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to change what I'm doing because it might upset them, or am I truly happy? Well, no, but then if I do what makes me happy, then it's going to make them upset, so it's
mm-hmm.
not always like a negative interaction. Sometimes it could be people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't want to be honest with yourself, or you don't want to like truly do what will make you happy because you're afraid it's going to like upset someone.
Yeah.
So that can be an example too.
Mm-hmm. So you take on the negative interaction versus having a negative interaction with someone else.
Probably, I do. I probably, and it's people pleasing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll just accept the negative action, like you said, rather than it becoming a conflict, or rather than having a conversation about it. I'll just accept. It seems like maybe my thinking is, I can accept that more than I can engaging in a conflict or a discussion over something. It's easier just to go ahead and let that happen.
Oh my gosh.
Which isn't true to yourself.
It's not.
Yeah.
Right. And even though, and in those cases, probably a lot of times in those situations, you probably thought, I know this is best for me, but I'm going to do something else so it doesn't upset somebody else.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's that situation where I don't know what's right for me. I'm just making this decision. But there are probably some times where it was like, I know this is the right thing for me, but I don't want to cause any conflict. So I'm just going to be the one that's feeling bad or not getting what I want.
Yeah. And that is being, I guess, if you do like look inward and be like, no, I really want this, but I'm just going to deal with that. And that's not always, you are being honest with yourself. Sometimes it is better to do that. Sometimes it's not. I think that situation, depending how you're handling it, you could be more accepting of that behavior and be like, okay, that's not what I want, but I can accept and move on, so. And that's something completely different.
Well, I mean,
different
it's still
spiritual principle, but
yeah, but it's still being honest, with yourself.
That
is a whole nother.
Yeah, sometimes no reaction is an action, but that's completely different. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, but if you're like that all the time, just letting people have their way or run over you, even though you're aware, like, then that, you're being honest with yourself, but you're really not.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So I was thinking when after this coaching session, there are so many things in my life that, looking back, I can see with such clarity where I made it a specific choice, and it was because I wasn't being honest with myself. Even though I had the feeling, right? I had the feeling that this is what I felt. I felt the feeling of what is honest and true for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't go in that direction because of fear.
Yeah.
And I will say because of fear and because I was uncertain.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure if what I was feeling was right or not because it was so different.
Yeah.
And I really think that if we're feeling these feelings and they're consistent and they're good and they're not destructive to other people and humanity, right? If we're thinking like, oh yeah, I want to murder everybody, then that we might want to take a step back and not move forward with that.
I feel it in my soul.
Right. So, but we all have those, like the premise of coaching. We all know what is right and true for us. And we just have to maybe unpack it a little bit because we've put other programming on top.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are a few things where I felt like it was a good path for me to go down and it was right and true. And then I made a U-turn.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those times was when I was in my mid-20s. And I was really getting into metaphysics.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I wasn't really searching online and things like that. It was more like books and going to different conferences and talking to different people.
Mm-hmm.
There was some online stuff, but not like there is now. Right? We didn't have we didn't have Instagram and Facebook back in the Stone Age.
Have tons of information being thrown at you,
right?
Like you do now,
right? And then I went to Sedona by myself on a soul adventure, and that was really enlightening and great. And there was a time at that particular time I was thinking about moving to San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. It just kind of pulled me. San Francisco just was calling to me. And I had been there and it just, felt like the right thing to do. And I was also on the verge of starting a divinity program through a metaphysical college.
Mm-hmm.
I was really excited about it. I was kind of going back and forth like, oh, should I do it? Should I not? Felt really right and true in my soul. But then, that was so different from anything anybody else was doing around me. And I didn't have a lot of people to talk to about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt really different, especially given my family's background of business and, things like that. That was the path there was more linear, where what I was doing was a little more abstract, and free-spirited. And then I met my ex-husband and I just kind of stopped doing that stuff, and I thought, oh man, this is just something I was interested in, I'm just going to do this. And, I just kind of let myself be led in a different direction because I didn't have the conviction of being honest with myself about the fact that those things that I was interested in was really who I was. It was really what was being called to me and pulling my soul. It was real and it was true and it was honest.
Yeah.
And so 15 years later, after I was divorced, it was like that timeline of that 15 years totally collapsed. The things that I was doing before I met my ex-husband continued on.
Just started right back up.
Started right back up. And as I was getting back in touch with myself, really coming into, okay, what is it that I need, that is true for me, that I believe in, that I want to explore, that I want my life to be like, all of those things came back in.
Mm-hmm.
I look back now and feel with such clarity that I was being real and true to myself at that time.
Well, yeah, because it stuck with you. It wasn't like a fad and it was gone. It was there. Like it didn't go anywhere. But yeah, it's, I look at that a few different ways, which makes it more complicated, because it's like, well, you weren't true with yourself in the beginning, but to me it almost seems like you had to do the 15 years of that timeline first. You know what I mean? It was it's like, yeah, you have this ability, or you want to do this, and it's honest and it's true, but then it was like the universe was like, well, no, you're not ready for that yet. You have to do this. And that just makes it all more complicated, trying to figure out, like, well, is this what I'm supposed to do? But
well, here's the thing. Yes, I feel like that was an opportunity for me. So when I met him, it was like, okay, here's an opportunity. Do you really want to do this? Are you really going to move forward? Do you really have that conviction? Or are you going to be led in a different direction? Are you going to allow yourself to be led in a different direction? Right? Neither direction is wrong.
Yeah.
Neither direction is wrong. And there are lots of things to learn and grow from. And we had Kyle, which was, awesome and amazing. And, so I think there were two different paths. It was like, okay, if I was ready and I was clear and I had conviction, meeting my ex-husband and moving in that direction wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Because I had the conviction. I was like, that's not what I want.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I was still in that mindset of, okay, well, this is what I am supposed to be doing in my mid-20s. I'm supposed to be focusing on a relationship and getting married and having children. Right. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. So when an opportunity like that popped up, it was like, well, let's explore that, because that's really what I'm supposed to be doing.
So society tells us.
So, right. So society tells us, I'm glad that I had that 15-year experience, right? I'm not suggesting that was negative and that I shouldn't have had that, but it gave me more time to figure out how to be honest with myself.
Well, yeah. And there was, just from what you've told me, and it seems like it helped you discover who you are, maybe towards the end of that relationship. But then, like you mentioned, you weren't not being honest with yourself kind of steered you into the relationship. But then in order to, like, when it was time for it to end, you had to be honest with yourself to have it dissolve or whatever, and to figure out who you were again. Yeah. So, which you did, and you took some big risks, which we've talked about. You went through a divorce, then you stopped your successful marketing job to do what you wanted to do 15 years before. So, yeah, it was really interesting. And to that point of, having to be honest with myself in order to release that relationship and move forward and be honest with myself, during that time, it was extraordinarily painful to go through that separation. And at the same time it was very painful, I also knew it was the right decision. Yeah. So those were two very different feelings about a situation. Holding those two emotions as two concepts and viewpoints at the same time, but knowing that, okay, this is really painful, and instead of trying to, and I did for a while, try to claw my way to stay in it, releasing and surrendering. Letting
go of what I thought, the way that I thought things had to be, and just really letting go and releasing it and being honest and saying, it's okay. This is okay. This is the right decision. This is the right path. Let it unfold. Just let it unfold and trust.
Well, it's funny because it reminds me of a phrase is, anything I ever let go of had claw marks on it.
No.
And you said, clawing, but it's true. It's hard to let go. We let go of something and we take it back, and we let go of it and we take it back. But to truly surrender and let go of whatever it is, it's hard. And the honesty is what kind of gets you to that.
Yeah. The honesty of, this is right, this is true, even though it feels like you're failing. It is right, it is true, even though it might be different from what what else is going on around you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being honest about your part in a situation. Like, I couldn't see the ways that I contributed or didn't contribute to the relationship until really after I was out of it.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, well, I wasn't bringing my true full self to the table. I mean, bare minimum.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing that because I wasn't being honest about all of those things that were a big part of me, because I didn't know how to be honest about them, because I didn't believe that they were, I shouldn't say I didn't believe, I didn't recognize that they were, that it was really me.
That it was truly a part of you.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think being honest with yourself can be very difficult because we have so much programming that surrounds us. And instead of being still and being quiet and really listening to your heart through meditation, through prayer, through quiet contemplation, through being out in nature, through engaging with art, whatever it might be, having that time to really say, okay, what is really in my heart versus all of those things that I've been told or have the impression that this is what's true for me or should be true for me.
Yeah, and it's a fast-paced society anymore. We're always like busy or on the go or looking at our phones, or where, it's hard to stop and think, well, am I truly happy, or is this what I really want? Or and it's not. Sometimes I think it's a matter of figuring out what you can accept and what you're like, no, I don't accept that, because it's not. Sometimes you do have to like be honest with yourself and be like, well, this stresses me out, but it's not so much a matter of being like, well, I need to replace it or I need to do something different. Sometimes it's just a matter, it's like, well, I'm able to accept this. I just need to look at it differently. You know what I mean? Because it's not always like, I guess being honest with yourself isn't always about like having to make a change. Sometimes it's like, well, this is something that I need to learn to accept and I guess be okay with, So it's not always about like making a change or cutting people out of your life or like, no, I'm not tolerating that. Like I said, sometimes you need to figure out how to be like, it's not a big deal. I just need to approach it differently. So there's different levels of that too.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I think when we do think about being honest with ourselves, it is because we're facing some kind of turmoil with ourselves or around us, whether it be like, with my example is alcoholism and drug addiction or like an abusive relationship. Not, you weren't in that, but, like an abusive relationship, or sometimes it's a job that you hate. And then you're honest with yourself, that helps you surrender, and then you change.
Yeah.
But it's not always that. Like, it's not always, doesn't always lead to like a huge change in your life. Sometimes it's just realizing like who you truly are, what you want to feel, and that you're not okay feeling the way that you have been. So, little changes
absolutely
are sometimes the result, not huge, big changes.
Absolutely. And I always say to clients that you don't have to blow up your life.
Yeah.
You absolutely do not have to blow up your life. It could be a change in perspective. It could be a reframing. It starts with truly understanding how you want to feel, who you are, how you work, how you want to feel. Are you feeling that way? Are you not? Why? What's your responsibility in it?
Yeah.
Right? And moving on from there. And absolutely, the part of this too was in my job situation. My previous job, I tried to make it work. I tried to fit myself into the box that I was in. I'm like, I want this. This is what I want. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to share with the world. And I tried to make all that fit into that box. Came up with programs, came up with ideas. Didn't want to let go of the security, and I didn't want to let go of the safety. I liked that feeling. I liked it.
Yeah. You were trying to mold the box.
I was.
And shape the box.
Yeah. Right. And it was clear that, I had to be honest with myself after 13 years and say, you know what? This isn't working.
Yeah.
you are not going to feel the way that you want to feel in these other ways. Mm-hmm. You're feeling the way you want to feel from a safety perspective, from a security perspective. I feel like I'm doing the right thing from a society. I had all those feelings, but I did not feel connected with my soul. Mm-hmm. And I knew what I had to do, but I wanted to try to mesh the two, and it wasn't working.
It's worth trying. Like,
sure,
there's something. It was almost like you had a calling that you wanted to help people in this way, mm-hmm. and you're in this environment here doing marketing or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, let me see if I can implement it here.
Yeah.
But that went on for a long time, and you finally realize like this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but being honest with yourself, and I was listening to a podcast today. It was Oprah Super Soul Sunday with Jamie Kearns Lima, who is the co-founder of It Cosmetics. That's really, if you're interested in that at all, you should really listen to the podcast. She was talking about her new book, Worthy, mm-hmm. and all the things that she kind of had to come to terms with as well. And it really all came down to self-worth versus mm-hmm. self-confidence, because we all achieve different things and that feels really good. But there's that deeper level of self-worth and being honest with yourself and saying, okay, I have to be in alignment with my spirit, my soul, my calling, my whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be, that doesn't mean, when we say those words, it doesn't mean it has to be creating a big company and it does, it's not about vocation, it's about doing what feels good to your body, to mm-hmm. your soul, to your mind, to your heart, to, and that can be a gazillion different things related to family, work, hobbies, mm-hmm. whatever it might be.
Yeah. When I'm doing this podcast has really made me think about like what I was kind of talking about, the other side of being honest with yourself, because we all go through periods where we're, life becomes pretty repetitive mm-hmm. and then you start to get bored or not happy. But that's when that, like you said, that doesn't mean you need to blow up your life, but it's almost like being honest with yourself and like, well, I'm just not happy, but it's like, well, what role do I play in this? Mm-hmm. What can I change? What can I not change? Like, do I need to make a big change? Mm-hmm. Or is it something that I can change my attitude and that will make it better? Mm-hmm. Will that, like you said, help me be more in alignment with what's going on? Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Right, and it can be like a small change, and this isn't really a small change, but respectively, right? So it's like, I'm not feeling good about my life right now. I'm not mm-hmm. feeling good about my body right now. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe if I changed the way I was eating, my body might feel better.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just a small, again, that's not
not
necessarily a small change, but it's not blowing up your life. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Maybe I just start changing the way I eat, the things that I'm putting into my body. Mm-hmm. Maybe I start moving a little bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe, from an emotional perspective, feeling a little depressed, you start engaging with people in a different way. Mm-hmm. You, instead of laying on the couch, you walk around your house a little bit, and then you walk outside a little bit, and then you're doing different things. Like you become aware, and then you take action. Yeah. And it doesn't mm-hmm. have to be big action. It can be small actions.
Mm-hmm. But the first step is mm-hmm. looking inward and realizing like, no, this isn't good, or I don't like this, or I want to feel different, and then going from there. So.
Yeah. So I'd like to hear from people who have had this experience of, share with us a time when you've been honest with yourself, like truly honest. Mm-hmm. It's like you knew you needed to be honest, and then you finally got to the point and you were like, fine. I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to make a change, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to have this conversation, because I have to be honest with myself.
Yeah. Well, and I think a quick one for me, I know we should probably end it, but it was like when I started to look at the lifestyle I had, and kind of like a bachelor lifestyle, mm-hmm. and lived that way for a long time. And I think I really looked inward and was like, this isn't sustainable. This isn't really making me happy anymore. And I think it opened me up to be more willing to get serious with someone. But that repetitive lifestyle was becoming unfulfilling. And when I really stopped and was like, this isn't how I want to grow old. You know, that was an honest look inward. And hard to admit that, but and then hard to let someone in and all that stuff. So that's just one little example.
Yeah, that's a big example.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, let us know. And we appreciate being honest with our listeners.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Pretty honest.
And it keeps us honest.
And we might get more out of this than the listeners, but yeah, feel free to interact with that Q&A on the it's under each individual podcast. Give us some feedback if you can relate.
All right. Well, be honest with yourself this week and see what comes up.
See you later.